The Civil Rights Era! Post-Civil War Southern society was one made up of segregation. Separation by race. Minorities were treated as second-class citizens. Often denied access to public facilities. It affected where people could live, where people could work. Generations raised to hate people different than them. But how does one craft social change? People must band together and form interest groups. These interest groups must fight for a policy change, like the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, otherwise known as the NAACP. The NAACP worked hard to influence society, influence the people, influence the government, to protect all people under the Constitution. Yes, Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on the bus, but she also had been a member of the NAACP for 12 years before that. The NAACP is going to protest its message on the streets, drawing attention. They showed America how cruel African Americans are being treated in this country. People were willing to go to jail to have their voices heard. Show harsh reactions from police. In Brown v. Board of Education, they're going to argue that people shouldn't be separated by race. They shouldn't walk past a white school to go to the colored school. The decision in Brown v. Board is that separate is not equal. Segregated schools go against the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. 9 students are physically stopped from desegregating schools in Little Rock, Arkansas. The governor even brought out the National Guard to stop them from entering. Eisenhower's going to respond by sending troops to walk these kids to school. The 24th Amendment is going to eliminate the poll tax. No longer can you be required to pay money in order to vote. Dr. King is going to give his I Have a Dream speech in front of 250,000 people gathered in front of the Lincoln Memorial, where he's going to talk about equality and opportunity for African Americans. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 is going to end segregation in public places and ban employment discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. This is going to end de jure segregation, or segregation as a result of government. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 is going to stop barriers at state and local levels for minority voters. Now, post-Reconstruction all the way up to the 1950s and 60s, we see that Southern society was not enforcing these constitutional principles on the Southern population. This is going to change. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 is going to enforce the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 is going to enforce the 15th Amendment. So what about today? We still have de facto segregation, or segregation as a result of practice, like housing patterns. We can see the grouping of races in different areas of the states. Affirmative action is the label placed on institutional efforts to diversify by race or gender. Can colleges use race as a factor for determining admissions? The Supreme Court says you cannot use race in order to ban an entire group of people from attending your college. But the Supreme Court also says that colleges can use race if they want to diversify their campuses. How involved should the government be in diversifying jobs in American society? Questions are hard sometimes. Well, good luck. America has a very diverse population. Let's just take a moment and look at some of the contributions from these people. Women fought extremely hard in order to obtain the 19th Amendment. In 1954, Hernandez v. Texas, the Supreme Court's going to rule that it was not okay this part of Texas was banning Hispanics from serving on juries, that people were not being judged by a jury of their peers. Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta organized the largest farmers union in the nation. The Native American Rights Fund is an interest group that focuses on lawsuits that help them obtain hunting, fishing, and land rights. The Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund fights for very important things like safety, because thousands of Asian Americans are the victims of hate crimes. Education, a majority of Hmong and Cambodian students do not graduate from high school. And jobs, there's a glass ceiling that stops a lot of Asian Americans from advancing to high-level paying jobs. The Japanese American Citizens League is going to speak out against internment camps. In 1944, the Supreme Court is going to rule in favor of the internment camps, upholding Roosevelt's executive order. President Reagan ends up signing the Civil Liberties Act of 1988, which apologizes for the internment camps and awards each survivor $20,000. In 1990, George H.W. Bush is going to sign the American with Disabilities Act into law, which grants equal access to public facilities, employment, and employers must adjust schedules and modify equipment as needed. The gay liberation movement is going to be successful in 1973 when homosexuality is no longer classified as a mental disorder. In the 2015 Supreme Court case Obergefell v. Hodges, the Supreme Court is going to rule that same-sex marriage is legal throughout the entire United States. States do not have the right to stop same-sex couples from getting married. This court case is going to link same-sex marriage being protected by the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. That was just a fraction of the contributions, but what do all these different people have in common? They all want one thing. Alright, the civil rights era, very epic. I hope you notice there's been a lot of change in American society over time. I'm not saying we're done, I'm not saying what's right, what's wrong, we don't have to agree on these things, but overall we should see that change is possible and that you as a person, as a group of people, can make change in American society. That's kind of the point of the whole class, to make things better. Alright, have a good one everybody, talk to you later.